Welcome back to the deep dive.
Ready for another one?
Always.
Okay, good.
Today, we're diving into 3111 Cain Avenue.
Ooh, that one sounds familiar.
Yeah, and it looks like we've got a ton of sources on this one, too. Police reports, personal accounts, even some historical records.
Yeah.
All hinting at something, let's just say, interesting about this house.
Definitely sounds like more than just chipped paint and creaky floorboards.
Right.
So what's the plan for this deep dive? Unpack all this crazy history and maybe figure out why this house seems to have such bad luck with its owners.
You got it. The history seems just as troubled as the present. So where do we even start with something like this?
Well, like with any good story, we got to start at the beginning.
Yeah.
And for this house, the beginning is even before the house itself existed.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What do you mean?
The land the house sits on, it used to be a cemetery.
No way, a cemetery.
Yeah, dating back to 1855.
Whoa.
Just imagine that for a second. Your dream home built right on top of a forgotten graveyard.
Okay, yeah, that's already giving me the creeps. But wouldn't the city, have to deal with something like that before building homes?
You'd think so, right? But back in 1919, the city of Zion decided to expand, and they moved the cemetery. But from what I'm seeing in these records, they weren't exactly thorough about it.
Oh, no.
It seems like they left a lot of bodies behind and just moved the headstones.
Seriously. Talk about a recipe for disaster.
It's definitely an unsettling foundation, and it doesn't get any better when you factor in the first owner.
Okay, who was the brave soul who decided to build a house on top of a, half-moved cemetery?
His name was Albert Franklin, a funeral director.
A funeral director. Wow, talk about leaning into the theme. What are the odds?
Right, but Albert wasn't your typical somber undertaker.
What do you mean?
He was known to dabble in the occult. He even went so far as to make a deal with a demon for success.
Okay, hold on. A deal with a demon?
Yeah, sounds crazy, right?
Yeah, that's taking things to a whole other level. What kind of deal? Like sell his soul kind of thing?
The exact details are still a mystery, but the sources say it definitely involves sacrifices.
Oh, that's awful. And criminal, too.
It seems ambition and greed can really push people to do terrible things. And in Albert's case, it opened a door to something, pretty dark, something that latched onto the house.
So we've got a house built on a forgotten graveyard, and the first owner is a demon-dealing funeral director who was cutting corners in the worst way possible.
Yep.
This is already wild. So who would even want to live in a house after that?
Well, believe it or not, in the 1930s, a family named Holtz moved in. Ben, the father, had a job that required them to move a lot. And they were looking for a place to finally settle down.
Oh, that's kind of sad, considering what we know now.
Yeah, it is. They saw this house, loved it, thought it was their forever home.
Did they experience anything weird right away?
From night one, Ben swore he heard voices in the basement. He was convinced there were intruders down there.
Seriously? So were there actually intruders?
That's where it gets interesting. While there's no official record of a break-in, the sources suggest there were indeed intruders down there that night, just not the kind you'd expect.
Oh, okay, you've got me hooked. But for now, let's stick with the Holtz family. What happened to them? Did things get worse after those strange noises?
Tragically, yes. Not long after they moved in, a fire broke out, and their young daughter, Andrea, died from smoke inhalation.
Oh my gosh, that's awful.
It is. The parents were found in their bedroom, huddled together, but their deaths weren't as straightforward.
What do you mean?
The coroner's report suggests they may have died before the fire even started.
Wait, so are we saying they were murdered and then someone set the fire to cover it up?
It's definitely a chilling thought. The police never found any real answers, so there's this cloud of suspicion over the whole thing.
Wow, so we have a house built on a forgotten graveyard, a demon-summoning funeral director, a tragic family death wrapped in mystery. It's like whatever darkness Albert Franklin brought to that house got amplified by the tragedy.
A permanent stain, you could say.
Yeah.
And it just seems to have gotten stronger with time.
Oh, no.
In the late 20th century, the Torrance family moved in. They were a big, lively family, excited about making the house their own. It didn't last long.
What happened?
Their experience was even worse than the Holtz family's. Furniture moving, their grandmother was attacked, and they even described seeing a terrifying figure on the stairs.
It's like whatever's haunting this house has gotten bolder over time.
Like it's feeding on the fear. And the Torrances were so scared they fled the house, leaving most of their stuff behind.
Wow. So we've got a forgotten graveyard, a demon-summoning funeral director, a tragic death, an escalation in paranormal activity.
Yeah, it's a lot.
No wonder no one could stay there very long.
Okay.
So that brings us to the Parker family,
Yep.
the latest to try their luck at 3111 Cain Avenue.
Right. They were hoping for a fresh start, a new beginning. Like so many before them, they saw the beauty of the house and overlooked the warning signs.
Sounds like they were walking into something way more complicated than they could have imagined. What happened when they moved in? Did they run into that same terrifying figure? Okay, I'm definitely on the edge of my seat here.
The Parker family story is maybe the most unsettling of all, and it's their experience that starts to shed some light on what's really going on at 3111 Cain Avenue. The Parkers, they really did see this house as their forever home. Like they were going to be the ones to finally make it work.
Yeah, I can see that. It's a beautiful house. You can kind of see the appeal, despite everything.
Right. But almost as soon as they moved in, things started happening.
Oh, here we go. What, like objects moving, shadows, the usual stuff?
This time it was more targeted, I guess you could say.
Oh.
Cindy, one of the daughters, she got pushed down the stairs.
Pushed, like actually pushed.
That's what she said. Luckily, she wasn't seriously hurt.
Wow, okay, that's not good.
And then Aaron, the father, he reported seeing a creature in the house.
Ugh. It's like, how many times does this have to happen before people learn their lesson? What was it about this house that just kept drawing people in?
Maybe it was the potential. A fresh start, a chance to make something beautiful out of something broken.
Or maybe some people just like a good scare.
Maybe.
So what was the final straw for the Parkers? What made them finally run?
It all came to a head one night. The family was in the living room and they heard this sound.
Oh, no, that's creepy.
Right. Well, Aaron, being the brave one, I guess, he decided to go check it out.
What happened?
The family heard him scream, like really scream.
So did the Parkers just pack up and leave after that?
No, they called in a paranormal investigation team.
Seriously, like a real team?
The real deal. Psychics, demonologists, even a priest.
They brought out the big guns? That sounds serious. What did they find?
It's pretty unsettling, actually. They confirmed there were multiple entities in the house. Not just one ghost, but a bunch.
Trapped there.
Some of them, yeah. The psychic on the team, Kate, she could sense their pain, their fear. It was like they were being held hostage or something.
Okay, yeah. That's definitely not your average haunting.
Yeah.
No wonder those families were so terrified.
And on top of all that, there was another presence they kept detecting. One that's been seen by a lot of people over the years.
Ooh.
A little girl.
A little girl ghost.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just creepy. Do we know anything about her?
That's the thing. No one knows who she is. Some think she's trying to warn people, a benevolent spirit. Yeah. But others think she's just another victim, trapped like the others.
So we have a bunch of trapped spirits, a shadowy figure that attacks people, and a little girl ghost. Sounds like a real party.
Right. It gets worse. The team started thinking all this activity could be connected to Albert Franklin.
The funeral director. The one who made a deal with a demon.
Yeah. They think his actions didn't just attract negative energy. They think he might have opened a portal to something way darker.
Oh, great. So on top of everything else, there's a demon involved. Did they ever figure out what happened to Albert, by the way?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? What happens to those who mess with forces they don't understand?
Spooky. The paranormal team was dealing with a whole mess of entities, maybe even a demon, all thanks to the house's first owner and his interesting hobby.
Yeah, Albert really messed things up with that whole demon deal.
So what did they do? Did they try to exorcise the demon?
It wasn't that simple, unfortunately. It wasn't just a straightforward haunting,
Right, they had those trapped spirits to worry about, too.
Exactly. So they had to take a more multifaceted approach. Figure out the root of the problem while also trying to protect themselves.
And hopefully help those poor trapped spirits find some peace.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, no simple exorcisms here.
So no holy water and dramatic chanting.
Well, there was some holy water involved. Father Michael, the priest, he was a big part of the team. More for guidance and protection, though.
Makes sense. And they had Kate, the psychic, right?
Yeah.
To talk to the spirits.
Right. She was crucial for understanding what those trapped spirits were going through. And, maybe offering them some comfort.
Did it work? Were they able to communicate with the demon? Did they find a way to win?
That's where our sources get a little fuzzy.
What?
To really know how it all ends, well, we'd have to read the novel that inspired this whole deep dive.
Oh, come on. That's not fair. I guess we'll just have to add it to our reading list.
Yeah, it's a good one. Really gets into the whole consequences of messing with forces you don't understand kind of thing.
And all that dark energy swirling around 3111 Cain Avenue.
Right. And, how much courage it takes to face something like that head on.
Well, on that note, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the haunting of 3D111 Cain Avenue.
Always a pleasure.
And for our listeners who want to know how it all ends, you know what to do.
Head over to Amazon and grab a copy of the novel.
Exactly. And until next time, keep those sources coming.